This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Right, it is 6:01. I will now call to order the May 12th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person, simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first order of business is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by GZA Geoenvironmental on behalf of Crown Meadow Corporation at Holly Circle and Crestview Drive, map 166, lots 75 through 80, 83 through 89, and map 171, lots 14-1, 14-2, 15 through 22, and 25 through 29. This is Mass DEP file number 1510327. I think we have fairly limited follow-up this evening, but we were going back and forth about a couple of particular locations with respect to the wetland line, and you were going to bring us some additional information tonight.
Yes, I sent an email last week. So this is the two locations. Jackie did 2 plots, right? Plot 1 and plot 2. And these are between the tree is basically welcome. The tree is very close to this, probably like 3 feet away from flag 1, is where the tree in the photos that we were looking at last week was located.
You want me to go? Have the commission seen it? I think it'd be helpful if you present it to us.
Yeah.
So I could see.
So this is plot 1. Yeah, this is right by the tree area where all the skunk cabbage was. I picked the area that had the most skunk cabbage. I know you're not really technically supposed to do that, but I know we were very concerned about the skunk cabbage, so that's where it was. There was no wetland hydrology seen, no high water table, no buttress roots, and then getting into the vegetation. Explaining how this form works. This is straight from US Army Corps. You download it and you put everything in and it does it automatically. So the dominant species is, I believe this is big-tooth aspen, and then we have sumac. Oh yeah, that's sumac, the invasive one. Yeah. And then we have Carcarian honeysuckle. That's another upland species. And then the first time when we see some obligate wetland species is in the herb layer, which is skunk cabbage, 35%. But impatiens, which is jewelweed, there was some of that, but all of the other species are upland species. And you can see here, dominance is 16% for obligate, fac wet, and fac species. Doesn't meet all the requirements. So not a dominance of, oh, and then we have some bittersweet and poison ivy. And for soils, non-hydric soils, none of the indicators were checked. So this is plot 1. Guess we could go to 2 and then we could show the photo. So same deal. This one is closer to the wetland. So you do see some different species, rose, lots of rows there, but it's a fact up species. They overlap for the tree category and some of the shrubs. I don't think we have any new species. So same thing, and then you get down to soils, you do see generally the same colors. And then we could go to the photo log, where I go through, I brought a tape measure. So you can see all of the skunk cabbage there. And then Ava, I don't know if did anyone go out and look at it in the field? Did
Yeah.
you see similar results?
Yeah, I saw similar results. I saw some different species than you saw, but I also went through the wetland determination data form and found non-dominant wetland vegetation, as well as soils that were pretty clearly non-hydric.
And just for a point of comparison, can you tell us how this differs from what you were seeing within the adjacent area where you did place the wetland line?
Oh, the wetland line closer. There were tussock sedge. It was gray soil. I showed it last time. I don't know if we have the photo from last time where I brought the two soil together. It's actually kind of glade, which is pretty cool, which is the soil is like really gray. More skunk cabbage, yeah, tussock sedge, and not shrubs. No, there's really not many shrubs in the main basin of the wetland. And you see kind of right as that line goes up in elevation, that's when you start to see the Tartarian honeysuckle and the rose. There's a lot of goldenrod out there, but you can't really tell what it is at this stage. We did see some remnant species, but it looks like Solidago rugosa, which is a fact up species. And that's what
You can turn off the lights. Maybe it's hard to see the color. It's much clearer on my screen than it is on the projector screen. Maybe slide it down. Let me do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks totally different when you see it. I don't know what's with this TV, but when you see it, it's like completely gray.
This is the wetland soil.
Yeah, and you can see the striations right here. Oxidized.
So we're looking at the two
Next.
placed next to each other.
Yeah.
And then this is the non-hydric soil where it's more brown and brighter in color, and you don't see red or any other colors in it. Where the wetland is more gray.
Okay. Turn the lights back on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Follow-up questions from the commission?
Good.
So Ava, your findings concurred with what's being presented.
My findings did, yeah. I can pull up I did a rougher, I was out there today, so I didn't get a chance to type it up, but my findings were similar.
Okay. Any further public comment on this issue?
I did have one question.
Yeah.
On the form, there were 3 different categories and they're all marked as no. But since you did find species that are typical of wetlands, shouldn't that have been checked off as a yes?
No, because we didn't hit all the requirements. It's gotta have a 50% dominance of wetland species, and it was only 16%.
Okay.
And then the index has to be, remember if it has to be greater than 3, and it was only like 6. And US Army Corps crates those.
I see.
Did you say it was 16%?
Yeah, it was only 16% of wetland obligate species. And you need 50.
Right, if there are no further questions or comments, are we ready to approve the delineation? So just for everyone's reminder and for the public, we have no project before us. We're just being asked to approve the resource area delineation at this point. So the line that we approve would be then locked in place for 3 years.
So a motion to approve the ANRAD for 3 years.
And we haven't done an ANRAD in a while. Do we have anything more specific
So
that we need to
should have
perform in here?
Yeah, the ORAD is in there.
Thank you.
And I think given, so I'm gonna share the last plan, which is identical to the one that's in front of you.
Mhm.
I believe this is the plan that the commission is approving. And so my understanding is that we're not approving it with, like we're accepting it as is versus modifying it, is my understanding in terms of how the form works.
And so this is the one that has the modifications from going back and forth with our peer reviewer, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
It's been like a time since we've done one. Are there any, all the flags we're looking at are on property and, I think, and I remember in the past, like listing very specifically flag series that were being approved versus other ones that were not on the property or something like that. But we don't have any of that instance in this particular
I don't think-
case.
Are any of the flags actually on the subject property
I think
from
just
that owned by the
F2.
proponent?
Yes.
Very few, right?
But the rest are
The
on
rest are on other properties.
Pasconic properties
Yeah.
and then the property of
The coin.
the coins, right?
With the property owner approval.
That was included as part of the original ANRAD.
And then there's also the status of the stream relative to it being implemented.
Yes.
Yep.
And so the option we have before us is to make a determination that the resource area delineation is accurate, where the boundaries described on the reference plans above and in the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation are accurately drawn for the following resource areas. And the ones that we are asked to approve are bordering vegetated wetlands and bank. Is that accurate? So that would be what we were voting for. And that is the plan dated 4/3.
Yes, 4325.
325. And this is the most recent one after
Yes.
after the
yeah.
initial peer review.
Incorporating peer review.
Yeah, right.
So I'll make a motion that the delineation is accurate.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right?
Motion carries. Go ahead and pass this around for signature. Thank you. Never seen this number of signers applying,
Do?
different form.
I think standard for standard. Slightly different.
It doesn't even get its own number. It's just 4B, which is kind of like ANRAD is 4, right? So I'll need to scan this into our files and then I'll send you the original, which will need to be registered or your client can register it. And we'll want proof of that registration.
Yep.
Excellent.
Guess which one?
Oh, which property will it be registered at? Probably at the site of the project would be my guess.
Where's him?
Well, not project, the site of. The ones that have the buffer on it?
I'm not sure. We can, we'll ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I can figure that out.
We have a guru colleague who's been his commission chair for a while. We'll ask him. We'll get it registered somewhere and we'll send it back to you.
Okay.
Here's starting here and front here.
One sign below.
Well, I already signed where you were supposed to sign.
Cross me out.
So I'm gonna cross through.
Oh dear.
Maybe in the form.
Yeah,
Do we need a new form, Commissioner Carr?
Well, I don't know, are simple cross outs allowed if I initial
I
it?
think we should probably have a new form.
That's good before.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is everyone okay for holding for a second? All right, no worries.
It's the flower has only 4 petals. It's not a need.
What I ever think it was some trillium. Yeah, and I took it home and I looked at the picture and I realized that one of the flowers had 4 petals on it.
So that's like a 4-leaf clover.
Yeah, I don't know if it's more common or what's common than a 4-leaf clover.
You sure one didn't fall off?
You heard that?
It added one, it added
It had 4 instead of 3.
It's my quadrillion photo.
awesome. All right.
Yeah. The picture is a trillion.
That blue one is pretty. Maybe that's just white.
No, right.
Historical styles, if you care.
Spelling error.
Hey, well, we got a set of copy editors on this board.
Eva. Yes, is the New England forestry not on the docket for today?
That RDA will be discussed as the last item on the ongoing projects component of the agenda.
Tonight.
Yeah,
I didn't realize there was another page,
I think-
another line, and I just signed underneath.
I think that's probably.
I think it's fine.
I'm gonna take this whole package. Just a folder for you.
Yes. Okay. So I will send you the form. Yep.
All right. Okay, great time.
Thank you. Very much. Should I send it to you guys at GZA?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, our next order of business is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by the Berkshire Design Group on behalf of the Community Builders, Inc. for a new housing development at 385 Main Street, at 154 lot 32-1, Mass DEP file number 1510330.
So I haven't heard from them, but I'm assuming they're looking for a continuance.
Okay, so we don't have anyone here to speak to the revised plan.
We don't have a revised plan yet.
Okay.
Nor anyone. to speak to it.
Next meeting is June 2nd, continue to June 2nd. Motion to continue to June 2nd, 6 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. We will add this to the June 2nd agenda. All right, moving on then, our next item is the public hearing for a notice of intent filed by, I believe it's Chapel Engineering Associates LLC on behalf of Mass DOT for a shared use path along Route 5, map 111-13 and 110-17. This is Mass DEP file number 1510333. Do we have someone here to speak to this issue?
Yeah.
If anyone?
Sorry, I apologize. Hi, Keith.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm Keith Lincoln with Chapel Engineering and Erica Larner, Mass DOT, and John Free.
Give us just a moment. We need to close the door. We're having a hard time hearing. Get it a little louder. Let's turn up the volume a bit. Could you try again, Keith? Let's see if we can hear you.
Keith Lincoln with Chapel Engineering.
John Soulsby with Chapel Engineering.
And hi, folks. I'm Erica Larner, Wetlands and Water Resources Coordinator with Mass DOT. My apologies, the camera was not turning on.
All good. Is the audio good for the
I
commission?
think we're okay now, yeah.
Okay. All right. You folks have the floor.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. As I previously said, my name is Erica Larner. We are here in front of you today to propose a shared use path along Route 5, Mount Tom Road. Portion of it is in Easthampton, a portion of it is proposed to be in Northampton, and we are in Riverfront as well as bordering land subject to flooding. We're hoping to have a conversation, present to you what the project looks like as a whole, and gather some questions from you folks. We have some comments from DEP that we did start to develop responses for, but I'm sure you folks may also have questions. So our goal is here tonight to present it to you, go over the general impacts, and see if you have any questions for us that we can make sure we go back, address, correct any issues prior to the next meeting. So I think that Keith and I will tag team the presentation. He's going to go over the project. I'm happy to talk about our impact numbers and regulatory compliance, and have you folks pepper us with questions.
And Keith, you're now a co-host if you'd like to share anything on your screen.
Okay, so let me, this is a new format for me. Let me see if I get this. I go to share, select a tab. Oh, geez, window. Oh, here we go. Share. Okay, is that working for you guys?
Yep, we're seeing a presentation.
Okay, so this is the Mount Tom Road shared use path along Route 5 project, and this is essentially the presentation we did for the 25% preliminary design public hearing. Condensed it down for presentation here for you all tonight. General project overview. The project begins at the existing Manhan Rail trailhead along on the west side of Route 5 and continues along that west side of Route 5 over the Manhan River with a widening of the sidewalk on the bridge, and then extends northerly into Northampton, follows along that western side of Route 5 all the way up into the interchange with I-91 and the northbound on and off ramps where there are currently bicycle and pedestrian accommodations that have been constructed under a separate project. So the intent is to kind of fill the gap between the rail trailhead and the accommodations that have been put in place over at the interchange. And why was the project initiated? The existing issues that we were looking to address are obviously the lack of bicycle accommodations. You see on that image on the screen here, there's a very narrow 2 to 4 foot shoulder next to a pretty high speed travel way, which is the only space available to a bicyclist. And there is, I'm sure you're all well aware, there is a high presence of bicycle activity out there on this roadway. And there is no space for a pedestrian to walk along safely. And there is no accessibility for handicapped pedestrians to use this roadway or section of roadway. This here is another good image of the lack of accessibility and the issues with the sidewalk on the Manhan River Bridge, the vegetation, and then the fact that this sidewalk doesn't have any continuity to it. Once it gets across the bridge, it discontinues. So the objective is to provide that access all the way up to the next accommodation on the north end of the project. So what are we looking to accomplish? The goals of the project are to improve accessibility and to improve parking for access to the bike facilities, bike and pedestrian facilities that are built with this project. Obviously, in paramount is to improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. We also are trying to encourage more use by the vulnerable users, people who might be uncomfortable trying to bike or walk on Route 5 or along Route 5, to give them a safe option. As I said before, to make a connection for pedestrians and bicyclists between the Manhan Trail in Easthampton and the accommodations in Northampton. And again, improve safety for the vulnerable users at the interchange, which is obviously it's a relatively dangerous crossing without accommodations built in. And then this is just a simple graphic to display the project. And beginning at the southern end at the Manhan Bike Trail, we were asked to look into providing better parking facilities at that trailhead with handicap space and access to both the Manhan Bike Trail and our shared use path on Route 5. This will also include a bus stop, which we've had coordination with the PVTA on. So it provides that multimodal access as well. So as part of the parking lot, what we have built, designed in is an infiltration basin that is designed to accommodate or address the stormwater standards fully for the new impervious area created by the parking lot. And then what, as far as the path itself, it runs right adjacent to, pretty much following the alignment of Route 5 from the trailhead up to the Manhan River Bridge, and then goes across on a wide, as I said, the widened sidewalk on the Manhan River Bridge. And the widening is being done to the inside of the bridge. So the bridge itself doesn't get widened. It's the sidewalk that gets widened. The roadway gets narrowed to make space, the increased space for the bicycles and pedestrians. And then this extends into or across the bridge. And then we have a little reverse curve where we go behind the guardrail. And for the most part, the path runs along Route 5 and behind the guardrail in the embankment area, next to whether the resources and or the land use adjacent to the roadway. And there's also a little wiggle where we've fit into the railroad crossing for the Packaging Corporation of America to try and make this a nice, safe perpendicular crossing. as opposed to the confusion that you would get at the driveway for the PCA, the railroad and Route 5 itself. And from there, the project extends northerly along Route 5 and enters into the uplander area where there is, I'm sorry, I meant to go back there, but basically running adjacent to the roadway and then crossing Atwood Drive and the Atwood development, and then tying into the newly constructed interchange and the bicycle and pedestrian facilities at the north end of the project. And that's just a general overview to try and give you an idea of what the purpose of the project and what we're proposing to do.
And if you folks wouldn't mind me sharing as well, I do have our project plans and some paperwork with just the basic impact numbers. Let's see.
Yeah, you should be good to go, Erica.
Great, thank you. All right. You guys, now you can see us, right? We're watching ourselves. All right, let's see. So real fast, these are, you guys have a copy of these plans. You can see this is the general work that's being done in Easthampton with the potential impacts. And as we scroll further down, we have a little bit more detail with the different designs, the parking lot. And I'm happy to go back and go over any portions of these that you might have some specific questions about. And then I was also going to talk about that we have 2 resource areas aside from buffer that we are proposing impacts in. The first being bordering land subject to flooding. And for there, we are talking about some substantial temporary impacts because, let's see, bordering land subject to flooding does not have the minor activity exemption that you see in buffer or in riverfront. So all of the work, including the roadway resurfacing, is something that we come before you folks, and that's what you're seeing for our temporary impacts. We are looking at converting in Easthampton just under 10,000 square feet from what would have been grass to, I believe that's the basin, Keith, right? Mostly basin and some pavement.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. And the larger concern for flood zones is really the flood storage capacity. So this would not be the typical cut and fill sheet that you might see. And Mark Stinson, I know, did comment on some of these thoughts, some of this during his DEP file number comments. As you can see, we have a couple places where we've put an asterisk, and that is because we're actually creating more storage at a lower elevation. So while we don't have a foot by foot exact, we are providing the additional storage at a lower elevation. So before it ever gets high enough to the top level, we've already provided additional compensatory storage. And the numbers for our riverfront impacts, the proposals are a little bit lower because resurfacing, the reconstruction of the roadway that goes along with this is a minor activity. But we do have some temporary impacts in the degraded shoulder areas, and we're looking at converting permanently 410 square feet and 4,720 square feet into pavement areas. So that is, the basic summary of the impacts. And I think that we are proposing a good bit of erosion and sedimentation control to prevent anything from getting into any resource areas. At the current moment, even though we are adding pavement, a lot of this ends up sheet flowing. It doesn't have a lot of treatment. We are going to put in a basin as well. And I apologize because I can't think of anything else at the moment to spontaneously inform you about. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I think that's all I can think of at the moment spontaneously.
Erica, I know several of the DEP comments got into the details of which regulations apply to different resource areas here. Could you just walk us through, I know it's color coded, but could you just walk us through which resource areas overlap which pieces of the project? And before you dive in, I think it's on your screen, not ours, but the Google Meet window is blocking what I think is going to turn out to be a critical corner of the plan.
I'm so sorry about that. Let's see.
That's okay.
I haven't quite figured out how to make that really high, but we'll put you way down there.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Excellent. All right. Okay. So one of the errors that we did have that Mark Stinson noted was that we did discuss riverfront alterations under both development and redevelopment. So I guess we should discuss that. This is all riverfront area. Actually, I'd say the vast majority, the entirety of the work within Easthampton is within that layout, the 200-foot area. And let's see. So this is the area where we're looking at riverfront impacts in the hatching in the 200. And then as we go further down, in this area, again, we have the degraded areas that we are proposing for grading and loam and seed. In our green areas, this is the 100-foot that the inner 100-foot that has the most protection. This is the area of the riverfront that we're looking to have some impacts to. And let me see if I can zoom in real fast.
And just to clarify, is the entire riverfront associated with the Manhan River, or are we also within Connecticut riverfront area? Do they overlap here?
You know, I have to be honest, I'm not sure if they do. Yes, they do. Here we have the Connecticut, and you have the connection with the bridge. You have the Manhan over here, and it's connecting, sorry if I'm scrolling too fast, to the Connecticut. So yes, it is coming from both rivers at this location.
Okay.
Let's see. And then
Commission prefer I project this.
Yep. And just before we cross over, these are the areas. So for me, I think that where we're, most of this is all, I'd say, no, I'm not most, I'm sorry. All of this in Easthampton is all previously degraded roadway shoulder. So no topsoil other than to support minimal invasive species and the grass there. And I apologize. I'm having a difficult time making my mouse work well. Let's take us over to this side. And then once we pass the bridge, we're looking at, again, buffer zone, floodplain, and riverfront all throughout here. The floodplain does coexist at the riverfront in most areas. I believe the entirety of the project is within BLSF. And then let me zoom out. I apologize. I'm not used to this format yet, so it's taking me a little bit longer to get there. So, and this is the Oxbow, and then we cross over into Northampton. But the largest part is all of this roadway resurfacing is within the floodplain, but the closest work is up here along the roadway shoulder. And you can see that we're looking to expand in certain sections, proposing the 10-foot asphalt walkway along here. And I apologize. I know you asked a specific question about the impacts you'd like me to go over. Could you remind me what that was again?
Yeah, just looking for you to kind of walk us through which pieces are exclusively within exempt riverfront versus which pieces are not covered under the exemption, just to get some clarity, because there's a lot of different color codings.
Yes, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So all of the work that is within the roadway that as it currently exists, the Mount Tom Road, in this section here where it's already the pavement, that would all be buffer and riverfront. That would be minor activities that would be exempted from review. But all of the road work that is exempt under riverfront is not a minor activity for floodplain. And I know that the reason for that is that while the square footage in the aerial overlay, that may not have, you may be able to do work in that area without impacting the resource area. But if you start putting fill in, we could definitely impact the amount of flood storage, put it on someone else's property. So we do have to discuss with you folks all of the full depth reconstruction that is proposed along Route 5. And so we would go in and excavate all of the asphalt, churn it up, put down a new base, and I don't know we'd use that exact asphalt, but we would recycle other asphalt and bring it into cover. But when it comes to the actual new pavement and any clearing or grading, that is going to be in both riverfront and floodplain, as well as buffer.
So are there any areas within Easthampton where you're doing work that are fully exempt because they're outside of the LSF and covered under the riverfront exemption?
Keith, can I double check with you on that? I don't think we have any areas that are outside of the floodplain that are in the riverfront. Is that accurate?
I think there might be just a little portion of it over at the Manhan trailhead itself.
Okay.
It's pretty minor because we're pretty much in one or the other everywhere. But it just at the very beginning, there's
a 100-foot.
You can kind of see where it's in on that screen in gray. It shows the 100-year flood elevation contour, and then that's outside of the riverfront. So it's for all intents and purposes, we're pretty much in one or the other. There's almost no real estate we're working on where there isn't one or the other.
Yep. So yeah, the whole site is in jurisdiction one way or another. And I think what you just pointed out is that maybe right here in this area, that might be a lack of floodplain because I'm seeing the line come up through here.
Yep.
That is
Yep.
that should be in riverfront, I believe. Nope, actually.
I think you're outside it right there.
Yep.
That's that small little region there.
Yep.
Floodplain is not riverfront.
Yeah. Looks like that.
Right, there's definitely floodplain that's not riverfront, but is there any riverfront that's not floodplain, I guess is my question.
No.
Okay, so there's no areas that actually fall under the exemption.
That fall under the,
That are fully covered under the riverfront exemption.
I don't believe so. But they don't have to, the sections, they don't have to meet the riverfront performance standards. If they're exempt under the riverfront. Right.
Okay. And what, I know we did not have the initial response to the DEP comments until the start of the meeting. So we haven't had a chance to look through those yet. Is there anything that you'd like to point out in those responses for us tonight?
I'm just going to take that back because that way I can actually read and discuss with you. All right. Yes. So I think that we'd like to note that we did agree with much of the comments from Mr. Stinson about the different regulations and that the limited project status for the work that's in one of them that we applied would not meet limited project status. I apologize. I'm having a really hard time saying this verbally at the moment, and it's just not coming out well tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find my notes. May I have 1 minute to look at that?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that yes, one of the things that I did want to mention is that when we're talking about the compensatory flood storage, the cut and fill table we provided is not the traditional at this elevation only. There's a little bit of extra information provided in there. If it helps the commission, we can always limit it so it's a little clearer, but we are providing the compensatory storage at lower foot elevations, so that by the time the floodwaters rise, we still have provided the same amount of compensatory flood storage rather than having the exact same square footage at each elevation. We had limits with the right of way, so we provided more lower down. We are meeting our stormwater standards for this. We are also, for the minor activities and the limited project status, I do have a little bit more of a discussion for that, but it is, I can't find the document right now, and I'm trying really hard. And of course, I'm in front of you, so I'm not gonna, you know how that goes, right? Okay. We did review. Yep. All right. So I think I did discuss much of the things that came up for the comments in the beginning, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I can, while you're asking other questions, find the document about where I wrote down the word about the limited project status to discuss those regulations a little bit more. If you had other questions that might be design related while I look it up, that might be convenient. And then Keith could answer some of those.
Great. Keith, can you walk us through the information that you have with regard to soils and where your, I think there's a reference in the letter. I'm just taking a look now to test pits performed in July 2024. Can you walk us through the information that you have and how that was utilized for design of the infiltration basin?
Sure. Yeah. So we did do soil testing back in July of 2024, and that was used to design. That was really served as the basis for everything in terms of being able to establish the footprint for the parking area, locating the basin based on the most permeable soils and deepest depth to estimated seasonal high groundwater. So the testing, what it did was at each location, determined soil characteristics. They did a permeameter test to get soil infiltration rates, and they also determined a seasonal high groundwater elevation. So the bottom of the infiltration basin has been set to be about 2.5 feet above the estimated seasonal high groundwater at test pit 2, which is where the basin is located. And we use the infiltration rate of 3.38 inches per hour. That was what we got from that soil testing. And from there, we did a pre and post analysis on the increase in impervious from the construction of the parking lot, and you got the 210 and 100 year peak flow rates for the discharge coming from that area, which right now goes to a manhole located right off of Route 5. In both cases, that's our ultimate destination. So that was our analysis point that was used in looking at the two conditions, pre and post. That was also used to serve in the recharge calculations to make sure that we had recharge volume and that we would be fully drained within the 72-hour time period. And so the soil testing was the basis for the stormwater design for that infiltration basin to ensure that we could meet the stormwater standards entirely for that increased area for the new parking lot.
And where is the map of soil test pit locations and the soil information that goes with those test pits located?
That is in the report. Let me
Was it the one that you said by on Friday? The
It
geotechnical
is.
report?
It is. I don't, I mean, if you wanted I'm sorry, I didn't know if you wanted a page number. But it's all contained within that report. There is a map that shows the location of the testing. The results are tabulated for for each of the test pits performed. And as I said, we selected the one we located the basin where we had the most favorable results. That's the table right there. And that would be test pit 2. And oh no, I'm sorry, that's the grain size results. Further, that's it. That's the one. This is where they tabulate the depth to seasonal high groundwater and the saturated hydraulic conductivity. And one other thing that we found that was interesting was that actually underneath that, all of the soil with it, there was a layer of pavement that was actually underneath that we will be removing as part of this as well. This construction, that is another benefit, I think, to this location. It's as if they built the road, and then they, instead of removing the road, it's been, when they realigned the road, they just filled on top of it.
They put loam and seed over the existing roadway.
Yeah. Yep.
There's no infiltration happening at that location, but there will be now, or
Right.
proposing there to be. Yes.
Right.
I apologize to the commission that you haven't seen this yet. I received it on Friday.
Okay.
So
Can you pull up the map? Is it?
So at this time, it was a very conceptual layout of we called it a rain garden at the time. It has since been changed to an infiltration basin. Just for maintenance purposes, the most desirable BMP was an infiltration basin. But it's essentially a similar layout, only it's more focused on test pit number 2. And so the way it would work is that the stormwater would flow from the parking lot overland onto the through a forebay and then into the infiltration outlet control structure, then picks up the overflow and discharges into the manhole that is out on Route 5, ultimately that system. So that's an earlier version of the design. That's why it doesn't look quite like what we've got proposed right now.
Understood. And I don't have the details memorized. Dan may, but I know there's for infiltration basins, there is a requirement for, I want to say it's 3 test pits per X square feet, and I don't recall those details. But it looks like you only have 2 within that basin so far.
That's right. I mean, we did the 3, not knowing exactly the ultimate design. It's so there's really only 1 that's within the entire footprint of the basin.
So it's something that I will need to revisit to make sure that we're fully adhering to the requirements and adequately describing the soils. We've had a lot of issues with basins in the city failing to infiltrate properly because of variability of the soils within the basin. So we're starting to err, I think, towards looking for more granular information within those infiltration basins.
I want to add that I see in the cover letter for the submission that Mass DOT is asserting exemption from local, it references wetland ordinances, bylaws, et cetera, as an essential state purpose. Easthampton does have a stormwater ordinance, and Yes, I'm assuming that you're asserting exemption from that. It does have stricter regulations than Massachusetts stormwater management standards. But I guess my understanding was that state agencies generally tried to comply with local rules unless complying with the local rules interfered with the agency as undertaking of its essential state function, essentially. So I guess I just want to clarify that DOT is asserting exemption under the ordinance, and it'd be good to have documentation for as to why DOT cannot comply with it. If that is indeed how the law reads, which I think it is.
Sure, absolutely. So we can do both. Both provide you with a letter that has a little bit more justification for that exemption under the transportation bill. And we can also provide you with a discussion of, we do try to comply with local bylaws and ordinances to the extent that we can. And we can take a look and see if there's anything here that your ordinance requests of us that is achievable for us, and take a look. And if it's achievable, then, I think we would want to. And if we can't achieve it, we can let you folks know why it's not achievable for us. More than happy to do that.
Thanks. And I think the piece that jumps out immediately is, I believe Keith referenced that the basin is designed to have the bottom 2.5 feet above seasonal high groundwater, and our typical or our ordinance requires 3 foot separation to groundwater. So I don't know if that is something you're specifically seeking exemption from, or if it just wasn't on your radar when the design was put together.
So I would say that was not something that was on the radar when the design was put together.
So then we'll be looking for, as Erica suggested, clarification as to what exactly you're seeking exemption from and why.
And the city engineer, Diane, is planning to review this project either under the local ordinance, or if they decide to waive, assert themselves exempt, then she's prepared to review this under the state stormwater standards.
Okay.
For the June 2nd meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds good. I think I saw, looking quickly through the letter, a reference to a decision letter from NHES.
Yep.
Do we have that in hand?
Yep.
Ava?
I can project that. The species, is it fine to project them?
We probably shouldn't share them.
The answer to that.
Okay, I will not share
What was their determination?
Here, I can share their determination and not the species. Great. So, my read of this, and Erica and Keith, feel free to step in, is that, they have stated that it will not adversely affect the actual resource area habitat, but that, they require additional information. So,
Okay.
a botanical study and a habitat assessment.
So, yep. So under the Wetlands Protection Act, they are saying that there isn't going to be an adverse effect under the Wetlands Protection Act standards, but under the NISA, separate from the Wetlands Protection Act, they are doing an additional review with that survey. So they will have to issue a separate permit.
Go to the bottom, please.
Yep. And all commissioners have access to this full document that lists the species as well.
I think that the state employees cannot say the species, but people can. That makes
Is that the rule?
Yes.
So I'm not I don't know that I've encountered this particular determination before where they say no adverse effect, but they're also looking for additional information. So I'm not sure how this impacts our ability to make
a determination.
I think that's the difference between the estimated and the priority habitats, and that I always say it backwards, but that the estimated habitats for wildlife would be subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, but that the priority habitats, which are for vegetation, that is separately permitted with natural heritage. So to the best of my understanding, the Wetlands Protection Act references estimated, and that the no wildlife adverse impacts within the resource areas has to do with estimated habitat, and the plant species, the rare species, are monitored and permitted with natural heritage as a separate process.
So I do believe that this line indicates that we're not waiting on more information.
Okay, great.
Like, we're not waiting
See
on
that.
more information from natural heritage in order to issue an order of conditions,
Okay.
but that they will have to complete, the applicant will have to complete their
Additional.
additional
Okay.
review with natural heritage in order to be ready to go forward.
Great. Thank you, Ava. Other questions from the commission at this point? All right, I think we are satisfied for the moment. Obviously, we have some additional information before us that we need to review in detail. And it sounded like, did I understand that a more thorough response to DEP was coming, or is this what we should anticipate?
I think at the moment that's that would be what we were planning to submit as documentation and response. But if you have anything else that you'd like us to discuss, we're more than happy to give a more in-depth discussion of it. Quite happy to. Just not always sure the specific information you might like. I can let you know I did actually find the document and to explain the first comment from Mark in our response, if that's something you want to do at the moment, or I can expand upon it more in writing if that's better.
You're welcome to go ahead if you'd like.
All right. Okay. So what he's saying is that the 1053-6, that it doesn't apply to work within bordering land subject to flooding. This is the limited project status. And let's see, that it's saying that the riverfront limited project status, those don't apply to, it only applies to projects that are in riverfront, but no other resource areas. That would be the 10.536. And that is accurate. So he recommended that we look at the exemptions, the minor exemptions for riverfront. I apologize. So the minor exemptions is not the larger concern. It's the limited project status. When we look at 310 CMAR 10.533F, the discussion is that it doesn't appear to be subject to, that doesn't talk about shared use paths. And while it doesn't discuss the shared use paths, what it does say is that the excavation, structure, road, clearing, driveway, landscaping, utility line, and a whole bunch of other things owned by a political subdivision, that these activities can be limited project and can fail to adhere to the performance standards when they are unable to achieve them. Not that you could just say don't adhere to the performance standards, just if we cannot achieve them, it's still permittable. While we acknowledge that the 0.536 is saying that the riverfront area exemption doesn't work if it's in BLSF, the roadway, the 10.53F exemption, we assert that it would meet the intent of that limited project status, because we are expanding the roadway, we are actually rearranging the layout, we are working almost the majority of this within that roadway, and in certain places we are expanding it, but we are expanding less than one lane. So because we are not widening the road by less than one lane, we would argue that that F limited status project does meet the intention of that exemption, but I'd be happy to discuss it. But I did write that out also in the response for you to review later.
Thank you. That's helpful.
All right. I appreciate it. It is really difficult to keep those numbers and letters the same, especially when they both have sixes in them. Yep. All right. And then may I ask, while we are here, I have that the two major questions I came away with from tonight were that you folks would like to see more granular information about the soils inside the infiltration basin, including test pits to document that, and as well as a discussion on the stormwater ordinance, whether or not we are asserting that we are exempt, and documenting the differences between the ordinance and the Wetlands Protection Act regs and what we can and cannot achieve. Is there anything else that I'm hearing for questions that we can make sure we come with more information for you?
Along with the soils piece, it seems like the map that was provided in the geotechnical report, will not give us an accurate picture of where the existing test pits are relative to the basin design as it's currently proposed. So if we could have an overlay, showing how those two relate, that would be helpful. And then I think one of the other pieces that we were needing some clarification on after sort of sorting through DEP's comments were the exact breakdown of temporary and permanent impacts and then how they play out across all these resource areas. So it may be that we have that now, but I haven't had a chance to look through those responses since we just got them tonight. So making sure that we have all of that.
Test pits in that location, because the test pits are probably one's here, one's over there. They're pretty spread out.
Yeah, I think, again, I don't remember the exact details of what's required in the stormwater handbook off the top of my head, but I know there's a reference to multiple, and I think it's 3 test pits within a basin, but I think they're associated with a certain square footage as well. So I guess exactly what you have relative to those requirements, but then with the caveat that we have been seeing a lot of difficulty with actually achieving infiltration in basins within the city because of variation and locations within the same basin that have different soils than where the actual test pit was dug. So to the extent that we can get some more granular information within that proposed basin, I think that would be to everybody's benefit, because we'll know hopefully before construction whether it's actually going to work and not have to do a bunch of adjustments after the fact.
Understood.
Yeah, that's the stormwater ordinance piece. I think that's already here.
Yeah, Erica had that covered.
Is the commission satisfied with the information provided about compensatory storage? We need to take some more time to review it because I know
I think, I haven't looked at it in great detail, but I understand what you're trying to convey. So I think it seems like we have what's needed there.
Yeah, the intent is that at every foot interval from the point at which we begin work all the way up to the floodplain, there is storage provided at each elevation. It's just that in the cases where there's an asterisk, that additional storage is provided at an elevation below the elevation that's in that table.
Right.
So the horizontal spread of the floodplain is reduced for every interval. It just happens at different at lower elevations.
Right. I understand that intent. So it may be helpful if I can't remember if this column is already there, but if it's not, it may be helpful if you could just provide a column that sums all of the storage below a particular interval so that we can clearly see how that adds up without having to do the math ourselves.
And I think when you get up a temporary and permanent resource area impacts, we want a revised Form 3. That's good to go with that. So we have
just to clarify what's on there. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, exactly. Just we want the numbers for temporary and permanent impact on Form 3 to match the narrative revised numbers.
Any other comments or questions, clarifications from the commission? And then Ava, before we move on, anything we should know about how you're coordinating this with Northampton?
So Northampton has not opened their public hearing, is my understanding. Is that true, Keith and Erica? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think the real coordination is going to happen during the order of conditions writing.
Okay.
To try to mirror the orders if the commission issues an order, if both commissions issue an order, to try to have these orders just like match for the ease of the project moving forward.
Okay.
But given that my understanding is they're reviewing their own resource areas and their own component of the project, there's not too much else that we need to coordinate with at this stage. But I'm open to a different perspective.
Okay. And it sounds like we will, we'll have we will be issuing a stormwater permit. And so we'll have our own stormwater permit, stormwater bond. Those will have to be separate
I believe
because
that's true.
each town is going to have its own.
Right.
Okay.
If it's exempt, then it's exempt.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's exempt, then they don't have to, then we won't issue a stormwater permit.
Oh, true, because we would only be issuing under our ordinance, not otherwise just
The order,
informing compliance. Yeah,
right, the
Okay.
order would include that they
Yeah.
meet the state stormwater
Right,
standards.
right. Yes. Good
But it
clarification.
is a good thought for the commission. I don't know exactly what Northampton's timeline is, but that if once the 21 days begin to write the order, that we should, it would be beneficial, I think, for both communities to
To
be
be doing
staying
it at the
about.
same time.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which means that we may, depending on what their timeline is, we may need to delay our final vote to sync up with theirs.
I think that's true. Otherwise, the applicant can grant an extension to the commission to extend that 21 days longer.
Okay.
So the commission theoretically could vote, the applicant could say, we'll extend this to 5 weeks or something like that. So that's another pathway.
Okay.
I did have this one other question. Whether any of the work that's being done happens in the water. It didn't seem like it, but I just wanted to.
No work in Easthampton in the water. There is a culvert, a flood equalizing structure that contains what is a jurisdictional intermittent stream between the Manhattan, Connecticut and Northampton. And there is a proposed culvert extension there, but for this filing, there is no work proposed. The only resource areas are floodplain and riverfront. So nothing in water or BBW for this side.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if anything does come up before the next hearing, we'd be more than happy to take answers over email, make sure we come prepared, take questions over email. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to gather any more information that you folks would like us to do so.
Great. Thank you.
Erica and Keith, do you have a date that the hearing is opening in Northampton?
I think it's June was it, we did just get,
It was
feedback.
June
the
2nd.
May 22nd, I think, because
June
Uh,
2nd.
was the last one. June 2nd, they're not doing another one in May.
It's
I
actually
spoke
June
with Sarah
12th.
Laval.
Go ahead, John.
I spoke with Sarah Lavallee today and she said June 2nd.
It says 12 in the email she sent us.
All right, then, maybe she just misinformed me. I'd go by her email, Keith.
Maybe we
Okay.
should actually reach back out because shouldn't we be on the 22nd?
If you could confirm and let us know,
Yeah,
that would be
We will
helpful.
confirm
Yep.
and let you know.
Yep.
Yeah, we will definitely let you know.
The Hampton's next Conservation Commission hearing is June 2nd.
Okay,
For
so
East
they're not
Hampton.
meeting again in May. Okay, that's what happened then.
Okay.
It is
So
June
it's-
12th.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page about next steps, and we will be looking here for a continuance to the June 2nd meeting.
No motion to continue to June 2nd?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I so moved. So you will be on the agenda again for June 2nd at 6 p.m.
June 2nd, 6 p.m. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Does any commissioner want a copy of the plans or a printed out copy of any of the materials? I know these files were large.
I will take them if you have them, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can prepare those.
Okay, great.
I'll read them online.
Okay, anyone else want a printed copy?
No, don't do it.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Do you want another copy of the plans?
What's up?
Do you want another copy of the plans? I think you have. it, right?
Copy?
I don't have, did you give me?
I think I sent the other full-size copy with you at the last meeting.
Oh, we might have. Okay, I might have them. Was looking at them online because I forgot that I had those, but I think you're right. I do have something sitting on my, that I haven't unrolled. All right, great. Moving on, we have no requests for certificate of complaint, so we're on to enforcement action. Do we have any updates there, Ava?
I don't have any updates. Don't have any true updates, on enforcement actions.
Okay.
Do you have any untrue?
Well, I have sort of like comments maybe, but I think I can wait till I have something more.
Sure.
Okay, great. What about open space updates?
Yeah, okay, open space updates. So, 385 Main Street, from the conservation restriction side of things, I heard from Mark Walmsley of Kestrel Land Trust today, saying that, he's awaiting a final CR draft from the Commonwealth, no later than this week or next. That's this week that we're currently in, or next, putting us on track to get local signatures by the first half of June. And he said, again, there do not appear to be many issues left to resolve in the previous draft, so fingers crossed.
Okay.
The conservation restriction process, getting them through the state is really arduous and slow.
Mhm.
So that's very exciting that we've reached that level. The commission reviewed the draft MOA, Memorandum of Understanding of Agreement, with Mass Audubon, who we're going to co-hold the CR with. I believe we reviewed the MOA maybe in October. I think the commission said it looked good at that time. I have it pulled back up if we want to re-review it. It'll go into effect with the CR.
Mhm.
So this is kind of our this is the last good opportunity to like really reconsider. Do we want to take a look at it?
My recollection is that we didn't have any
I don't remember
concerns to address.
I don't remember anything brought up.
Okay.
I think we were all satisfied if it hasn't changed.
Yeah, nothing has changed, and I'll let you know if it does.
Okay.
The baseline documentation site visit is tomorrow. I learned of it today, so I'm gonna jump on that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I have. So
And am I remembering correctly, Ava, that they weren't going to put the CR in place until the property transfer had occurred, which had not happened. So where is what's happening now with signatures in June all relative to that? Are those signatures separate from that process?
It's a great question, and honestly, I believe it's a moving target here about the two different pieces of land, the sale, and how that's all coming to be. So I unfortunately don't know the most recent update of it.
Okay.
But I trust Mark that if he thinks it's happening in June, hopefully it will happen in June.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. I guess the one question was whether or not that was still open on the MOA was whether or not the city/commission/Mass Audubon wanted it recorded at the registry.
Yes.
Okay, all right, awesome. And who does the commission want who is going to pay to record it?
I just said yes, but
No, I think you know better than any of us from recently having tried to go back and unearth restrictions on various properties, that having them recorded at the registry of deeds is critical.
So key.
And the recording fee is, unless this is more expensive than normal things, we're talking about like,
It's like
$100, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So frankly, I don't think it matters.
Okay, great.
If it needs to come out of, if it needs to come out of our budget,
Okay,
it's $100.
right. Okay, excellent. I think it can come out of the open space project budget, right? But we can't use Wetlands Protection Act filing fee for this.
I believe that would be correct, yeah.
Okay.
they'll file before the property sells. But
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Any other open space updates?
The only other, so that's all I have on 385. The other open space updates I have, the Borkowski parcel. I'm working on accumulating a list of landowners in the surrounding area.
parties.
Exactly,
Okay.
interested parties, so that when I do have updates, I don't have a formal update today, but when I do have updates, I can just send out a blast email. I believe that's what Cassie did for Tasty Top as that list grew.
Okay.
So there's precedent for this.
Great.
But when I have an opportunity, I'm just going to call through just some of the surrounding Hendrick Street neighbors and offer them the opportunity to be on this list. So should they choose.
Okay.
I'm still not worried from National Heritage.
No, and I sent another reminder, like checkup email. I don't know,
there's no filing before them, right? Like there's no.
No,
No, we were
Yeah.
looking to have an informal conversation.
Yeah, they're so backed up that it's like,
unless you have a file in front of them.
You know, or
Who are you reaching out to? Was it a specific person or just a generic address?
Missy
Steve.
Ann.
Okay.
Yep. And we have gone back and forth. She's asked for a couple pieces of additional information. I would believe this is a more complicated review given the species that are present there.
Okay.
But I don't have a timeline from her or any
Okay.
additional information.
All right.
who's the state, bug person.
Are we in any position to do a filing?
I don't think it really makes sense at this point. An informal conversation is the most logical way to go about just seeking some collaboration and input.
I don't know how to get up on their list though.
You just send me the species
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so just last thought on Borkowski. If you know anyone who'd like to be involved, please send them my email.
Okay.
Great. Okay, Oliver Street Forest. So the graphic designer we're working with, her name is Olive Rowell, and she has begun designing the logo. And yeah, we had a great conversation about it. She's going to design little icons for all the various uses. I believe we came up with a pretty exhaustive list of possible icons we might want that once we can either have like, permitted or slash through for prohibited. But if something pops into your head and you're like, we should definitely have that one, let me know.
Great.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
but we should have some drafts to review next week or next meeting.
Okay. Excellent.
And I did also look at the Sanborn maps, the fire insurance maps. So the pre-1930 Sanborn maps that are publicly available for Easthampton don't extend out to Oliver Street, nor to the Northampton ones. So they're centered more in the center of town.
Right.
And they don't show those sort of further outreaches of town, at least on what I could find publicly available.
And remind me what we were trying to determine with those?
I think we were trying to determine, so we have the deed from 1902 when the city was purchased by the town of Easthampton, or when the land was purchased by the town of Easthampton. But the acreage doesn't match the current acreage of the two parcels.
Okay.
So I believe we were trying to figure out when the acreage was split. I feel pretty confident based on the deed that the 70 acres referred to in the deed includes the two parcels. The one in Easthampton, the one in Northampton, that are owned by the Conservation Commission, owned by the city of Easthampton, managed by the Conservation Commission. But I'm not sure what the rest of the land was.
Okay.
My suspicion is that it was the landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems logical.
That's where my mind's been going too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the post 1930 maps are still under copyright.
Interesting.
Sanborn maps. So yeah.
And most of those maps dealt with city locations, not, because they were insurance maps, so they didn't care about a house way out in the middle of nowhere, maybe,
Right.
they cared about the bulk of the buildup.
Right.
I also don't think there was ever a house on this. Like I think in 1902, when the city purchased this land, when the town purchased this land, there wasn't a house on it at that time. Right. There might have been there were houses nearby, but
Did I understand correctly that you just said that the Easthampton Conservation Commission owns land that's in Northampton?
well, so the city of Easthampton actually owns the land because it was
In Northampton.
that's in Northampton. Yeah. So there's two parcels. I believe the Easthampton one is like, I'm gonna get the acre wrong, but they're both roughly 10 acres. There's one in Easthampton, one in Northampton. They abut each other. And the city of Easthampton owns both parcels, including the one in Northampton.
I don't think Northampton's tracking it either. I think they forgot about it.
So then, but we would have the say over what happens in that land, not the
Correct,
Northampton Conservation.
because we own it.
Commission.
If there was a wetlands issue on that land, it would be managed by the Northampton Conservation Commission. But in terms of open space management,
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Not really uncommon. Like aren't some of the old reservoir lands in Easthampton actually
Northampton.
Westfield or something? You know what I'm talking about? The old dams back on Or maybe that's West Ham, I don't know.
Yeah, there's.
But there's definitely,
Municipalities and properties. in
Yeah,
different counties.
it's not at all
It's
uncommon.
All the time.
For water resources in particular, quite common.
Okay. Move on
It's a
to
big,
compliance updates.
Yes.
All right.
interesting, going for hours.
Okay, compliance updates. The first one I have an update for you on is 99 Mount Tom Ave. So this is the Cherry Street project. And back in the fall, we highlighted that I should return in the spring to see what invasive species were present there. So the city has not yet filed for a request for a certificate of compliance for this project, but would like to at some point soon. The project is complete mostly. But the question is revolving the invasive species management of the outfall area. So this is immediately adjacent to Brickyard Brook. So when I visited the site today, I saw a considerable amount of invasive species. I saw burning bush, Norway maples. There's a mature Norway maple that's like a large Norway maple that's within the project area. So it's dropped a lot of small Norway maples. There's some buckthorn in there. There's bittersweet. There's greater celandine, knotweed, garlic mustard. The whole gamut, yes. So I guess I have a couple thoughts that I wanted to bring forward to the commission. So the order talks about 4 monitoring reports for the replication area submitted over a 2-year period, which proves compliance with the regulations that 75% of the replacement area has to be native species, indigenous wetland species. So this is I can pull up the plans of this, but it's a little bit confusing not having been here for this project, for most of this project. So this section refers to a wetland replication area. This isn't a replication area, but there's a different place in the order where it talks about a restoration/replication. So I guess I'm wondering if the commission recalls, was the intention always for this section over by the outfall where the stream comes out into Brickyard Brook to be a restoration area subject to the 4 monitoring reports over 2 years for invasive species? Is my question clear?
I am recused from this item, right, because of my firm's involvement, so I can't speak to it.
I guess I probably would have thought it was we're talking about above, are we talking about the slope coming down around the outfall, and
Yep.
we're talking about in the
Yeah, we're talking.
resource area?
No, we're talking about the slope, which, right, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me to be it's not a replication area, but here, let me pull up the order. This is a moment where it's challenging within the capacity we have in the city. We're missing some key transfer of knowledge.
I mean, I guess my reaction was I probably would not have expected that level of reporting for those slope areas, but it probably would have intended for them to not have that many invasive growing on.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was confused about was this insertion of restoration up here in wetland replication/restoration. Any wetland replication and or wetland restoration. So the slope is referred to on the plans as restoration. So I guess I wasn't sure if it was subject to these requirements, this component of the order.
There was in water work, right? That was like at the bank line and down in the, what stream is that? Is that
Brickyard Brook.
Yeah. Was there actual BVW?
I don't believe there was a different wetland replication that happened on this project. Or I couldn't immediately find it when I was looking for it today.
And all of the invasive species you just named are on the slope.
They're all along the slope, yeah. So I guess, this is all sort of centering around a question of what is the commission looking for? What level is the commission looking for from an invasive species management perspective in order to move towards a certificate of compliance for this project?
Were there any non-invasive species?
Yeah, there were. The native species were actually, yeah, there were some plantings that were in there. There was some box elder maples that I believe were planted that were spreading. It looked like they were doing well. There was some dogwood in there.
Did you have like eyeballing at a percentage?
A little bit hard to tell. I would not say the invasives are under 25%.
Okay.
Maybe more like 60% invasives.
Wow.
But I will
mean,
say
there
it's
are a lot of invasives in the Brickyard Grove
exactly. So this is what's
conservation area itself. So they're
exactly
gonna jump stream anyway.
right. And these invasives match the invasives that are throughout the conservation area.
Yeah.
So it isn't the sense I get that most of these came in from construction. My sense is that they spread from the surrounding conservation area to the limit of work.
Is this one of the Poscomic areas where they're gonna do the invasive
It,
species?
it is, but they won't be doing invasive species on the private property that the city has an easement on, which is the land that we're talking about right now.
But it kind of seems like until they do their piece, it's just gonna, even if something was done about the invasive species that are there now, they would just come back until Poscomic is done.
I think that's likely true. The update I have from Poscomic is that they're not likely to do their invasive management until 2026, based on the lining up of their financing and contractors and permitting. They haven't even, right, you folks have not seen an NOI from Poscomic around invasive species management yet.
My inclination when there's something unclear in an order is to go back to the permit application, the drawings, and see if they have a commitment to some level.
Condition.
or
Okay.
another. Yeah, like does the permit application say, or does the drawing say something? Because then that would have been something that would have been in our mind when we were issuing the order.
Right. I mean, this is where I guess I lined up that word restoration area in the order with how it was labeled on the plan from the NOI.
Mhm.
But I follow the logic that you provided a couple minutes ago, where you were like, this seems like it may be these are the requirements for replication,
Mhm.
but they're not the same requirements that the commission typically requires for
Yeah.
projects.
But this in perpetuity condition is that they will ongoingly do this
Yes.
even after the
Yes,
compliance.
it's true. But it doesn't have a 4 reports over 2 years. It doesn't have the same kind of framing. So
No, but if they're not even there now, then we could assume that in perpetuity they won't be there.
it's true. It's true. I guess the reason I'm sort of drawing on this is that the city is looking to try to figure out how to allocate resources towards reaching a certificate of compliance here.
Mhm.
So they're looking for what their target is.
Do we have in perpetuity conditions on allowing plants or vegetation maintenance? Well, first of all, in this call out, does it call out that area as a restoration area? Like,
Is restore with,
yeah,
Yeah, what does that say? Restore with.
It says restore with live stakes and wetland seed mix, restore with live stakes and conservation seed mix, restore with bioengineered seeds, slope stabilization.
And where would growing seasons get us to?
Well, so that's another complicated question. So SWCA did the initial rounds of invasive management. And they did one in 2022 when they did the project and treated the invasives at that time. They did another round of treatment and monitoring in 2023. And at that point in 2023, they said the invasives look like they're taken care of throughout the entire project site. And their contract with the city ended. So Tom Lotzenheiser continued the invasive species monitoring for this project. And he monitored it in 2020, late 2023, 2024, twice. And he saw invasive species but he didn't estimate the percentages. So I'm not sure if he knew that was part of what the Conservation Commission was looking for, again, I'm not sure if we are looking for that 75% number or if that's referring to something else. I guess I'm wondering, I am not sure if there is a I don't believe there's another wetland replication area on this project. Which my question is why is it in the order? Why is the whole like requirements for wetland replication in the order if there isn't a wetland replication on the project? And was it meant to refer to this this restoration area adjacent to the wetland?
Sometimes things get in orders.
Yeah, totally. That's a perfectly valid question. And I also could reach out to Cassie and ask her that question too.
Bummer, that's why COCs have to get filed right when the project is done.
I wasn't there with it. So.
So it does sound like it was managed and it's just coming back because it's like present in the
Surrounding areas.
surrounding area. It's a bummer. This would not be included in what Comic would take care of when they do their.
My understanding is that given that it's private property that the city has an easement on, transferring the management rights to Pascomic would be not within the city's.
Is there any way, I don't know how this fits in the legal language, but is there any way to say that when Pascomic does their work, that we then ask the city to remove the invasives that are there?
Right.
And maybe.
Yeah, so I was discussing this with the planners and with the senior planner today of like, could the city contract with the same contractor Pascomic is using to do our portion of the invasive simultaneously? I think
but not in slope end because
but not
otherwise you're just destabilizing the whole slope again.
right. I think that's possible. Again, I think the city would be looking for some more direction about like what the target is here. Like, do they need 2 years of clean reports? Or do they need?
Well, there wasn't a perpetuity. That was the condition.
For sure, right. But
We just don't think that that should apply because it's not a perpetuity.
well, no, the in perpetuity condition does apply to the whole project, replication or not. But we don't typically require
That percentage.
right. It depends. I mean, we do request that, like we just did this for 232 Park Street, right? We requested that they have an O&M plan for invasives management in perpetuity.
Right. I mean.
It's just such a small, like little slice of a parcel. It's such a like. Makes sense to spend a whole lot of resources trying to make this one area like invasives free.
Because it's just gonna disappear.
Right. Well, certainly now as it's immediately adjacent to. I mean, okay, so a pathway I see forward is that the city, if we decide that this language in the order that requires the four clean reports is not applying to this area because this area is clearly not wetland replication and that language is specifically oriented towards replication, then we would be looking for a report that the area is free of invasive species.
I think that's fair.
And try to time it with Pascomic. If they're gonna do something, like you said before. Means no use doing something here if they're not doing anything in the surrounding areas because it'll just revert and.
But there's surrounding areas anyway, the whole neighborhood, everybody probably has all those invasive species in their yard. I don't know.
New property is care, there's invasives on it.
Apparently the landowner has been like cooperative and friendly.
I also wouldn't want to make them keep doing it just because it's like surface running surface water. So if there's any kind of herbicides used to treat the invasives, it's very close to.
It's very close to Brickyard Brook. It is.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, with the current state of it as it is right now, and I'm not going to speak to the long-term So like, I believe you could hand pull this area
And it wouldn't destabilize the slope.
and it wouldn't destabilize the slope. With the leaving of the mature Norway maple. So with the exception of the mature Norway maple, I believe you could hand pull the area.
And pull it like by hand?
Not a very big area.
It's 300 square feet.
Oh, okay, you're just talking about slope. Okay.
It's very small. So the sense I'm getting is that the commission's looking for a report of minimal invasive species.
And they could have pull. And that
You get volunteers to do that.
Yeah, the challenge with that is that it's a really steep slope with already somewhat unstable footing. I was on it today as I was looking at the invasives present, and I would not feel comfortable bringing volunteers on it. Like I wouldn't feel.
What makes you think it's not gonna destabilize?
I just think they're mostly quite small.
Oh, okay.
It's like little itty bitty Norway maples, garlic mustard. The knotweed's a bigger issue, but there's not a ton of it.
You eat the garlic mustard.
Keep the knotweed too.
Maybe we should bring it. All right, so I'll bring this back to my colleagues, that we're looking for a report, a clean report, probably under the 25% threshold of invasive species.
That's a laudable goal if it's not gonna involve a lot of herbicides or liability.
Okay.
Just one city employee for a couple of hours.
Herbicides would be permitted to be used for this.
I know they would.
Right, okay,
You know, if hand bullying's an option.
yeah, right, okay. Okay, that's the only update I have on that project. Okay, speaking of invasive species, the only update I have is for 50 Florence is that they're moving towards requesting a certificate of compliance, and they have to have a clean
Right.
report of invasive species management within their limit of work area too. So this is a conversation that we're all having as a city right now. Right. All right. Coming down on to Tasty Cow. So we have our first monthly report from our Weston and Sampson Commission's consultant. I can just project that real quick. So this is the cover page. This report's 60 pages. He incorporates all of Sage Engineering's reports as well. So that's nice. We'll have them just like bundled in these like monthly packages.
What was the date on this?
The date was April 30th.
Okay, so this predates all the recent rain.
This predates all the recent rain, yeah. But I have been receiving, inspections.
Okay, good, yeah.
It's been a flood in my inbox of rainwater of storm inspections.
Yeah, daily.
And I spoke with Greg Russo about, so minor issues. We spoke about how we're just gonna do this moving forward. Minor issues like flagging, silt fencing down. He'll just communicate directly with Sage and CC me, and then major issues, of course, will come to me and then come to you. Great.
Signature.
And they haven't done the stream class.
They have not done the stream crossing yet, no. We should have some lead up to that, because Weston and Sampson need some lead up to that in order to make that work with their schedule, so we've requested at least 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think
So-
they've got some work to do before they get to that stage,
Yeah.
so,
But they are still intending, as far as I know, to do it this construction season.
right.
Wetland flags 17 and 24. Shouldn't there be an alpha with those numeric codes? Reflection is that there are many flag series on this site.
Yeah, there's. Let's see. I believe it's the A series. I can pull up the plans that real quick.
I'm less concerned with exactly where they are and just having them clarify.
Having them clarify.
Future,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
And when you did the site visit, everything was looking to be in good order.
It was. Yep.
Is most of the activity still concentrated close to the street?
As of the last site visit, that is the case.
Okay. Great.
Great. Okay. That's all I have on Facey Talk on 9395. Allen Street, Easthampton Housing Authority, construction's begun. I can't remember if I had that update for you last time. I think I did, maybe.
I remember you spoke to it.
Okay. Yeah. The next one I have a true update for is S. Is it S on yours as well? Williston Pond.
Yep.
All right. So we have received the planting plan that we required in the order. So this is what we've got. Let me know how you want me to zoom in and around. These are the shrubs they proposed high bush blueberry, meadow sweet, steeplebush, and silky dogwood, and then 2 different seed mixes from New England wetland plants.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how they zoned it. Was there today because I was checking on the they're trying to remove the wattles around the bridge that RDA the commission permitted a couple years ago. So I did take some photos just if we want to like if we want to go back and forth with some images to get a sense. So not sure how to project both of these at the same time. This is an area that will have additional shrubs placed in here. Like in this area right here along between these trees. This is already, as far as I could tell, like not mostly grass all the way down to the bottom. There's some other herbaceous material in there. Mm-hmm. But that's a zone where they plan to plant all 4 of their species. Blueberry, bittersweet, steeplebush, and dogwood. And then immediately adjacent to, like on the other side of this tree, is more of the open space area. It's looking the other direction.
Are they gonna just plant, like spread the seeds over the herbaceous layer that's already there? Are they gonna?
Great question. I don't have any other specs in here. I can certainly reach out and ask about that if they're planning on constructing the turf.
That little diagram in the lower right, is that just a little thing?
That's how they're going to plant the shrubs.
Shrub planting.
Individual planting hole. I can ask Goddard what the plan for seeding is. It is a little silly in a certain way, like area 9 and 10, and I guess this area up here is not on their plan, but area 9 and 10, they just got all the grass to grow in. That was what I was just checking
Mm.
for the RDA.
I thought we had required some shrub plantings in that, as part of that RDA, no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This is, there's some like rock stabilization right there too. Some grass.
So it's-
Okay,
For
yeah,
grass.
I vaguely remember that.
I'm just imagining if they got the grass or whatever other vegetation is there, and the amount of them are having it all this week, you're just gonna end up in the pond.
It's true.
So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know what the best practices is for seeding on top of, turf grass.
It's tricky.
Yeah, I imagine they would want to do some kind of scarification to get some bare soil so that things can germinate.
Maybe there's even something in the seed bank there too.
It's been maintained as much
For a long
time.
Yeah.
We need.
Yes.
So this is organized by area, the table, is that, can you scroll up to the top?
Yep.
Okay.
With the square feet of each area, as well as the number of shrubs that are doing good. But a few shrubs, it's 57 shrubs in total.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a good variety there.
Yeah, I mean, our goal was to start moving in the right direction with, another piece of our requirement was a long-term, bigger picture plan, right?
Yes, a management plan.
Yeah, so I feel good about this as a step in the right direction. So it said the seeded areas would be mowed no more than once every 2 years, and then we have all of these areas of shrub that are reducing the mowed area or introducing additional roughage into what's currently mowed area. So I think it's definitely working in the right direction. The species make sense. I think what we had asked them to do was to find something that worked for them aesthetically, because it is a highly managed landscape, but also achieve some of our goals. So it works for me. Other comments, thoughts?
Next one's reasonable.
Blueberry could be nice in there.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm comfortable approving.
Right, right.
Do we have a timeline for when they're anticipating doing this?
I have not received a timeline. I can ask for a timeline.
Okay.
I'll ask for a timeline as well as for their plan for seeding.
Yep. And I guess the other thing, I can't remember if we specified anything with regards to confirming establishment.
I don't believe we did in the order. Yeah, do we want them to set some goals for themselves?
I think that should be a piece of this.
Yep.
Great. Survival monitoring and, great. Next steps if something doesn't take as expected.
Great. All right, so we'll look for that. So this is an approved draft, but we'll expect a final planting plan with the timeline, the plan for seeding, and their survival goals and monitoring plan. Yeah, which should nicely pair with the treatments, because this is an annual treatment process anyway.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay. That's what I have for, our open orders. Under RDA and DOA project updates for the Hartnett Manhan Forest. So we have a volunteer trails day, that I mentioned last time. That's this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. As I mentioned last time, I will unfortunately be out of town. But if any commissioner can be there, it would be great. To have some commissioner presence.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have it projected right up here, so it's like a reintroducing the public to the trails on the mineral street side of the parcel.
Can anyone go?
Yeah, so it's open to the public. It's from 1 to 4 on Saturday, May 17th. And I believe Beth Gula, the steward from New England Forestry Foundation, will be leading it. There may be other people from New England Forestry Foundation there as well.
You allowed to park there for that?
Yes, on the Mineral Street. So this is entering from the Mineral Street entrance to the trail system.
Oh, I guess I'm not, okay, I'll figure it out.
So it's different than the Loudville Road, the previous entrance on Loudville Road.
Okay.
You can show, I think. Yeah, this is what it looks like on Google Maps. So there is Loudville Road.
Okay.
And Mineral Street is right here. We're very close to the Westhampton border.
Okay.
And so this is the entrance on Mineral Street.
Oh, I know where
Great. The only other update I have for that is I've just been kept updated with some plans to reduce access for parking on the Loudville Road side. Some plans to put some old Eversource's old telephone poles in the pull-off there.
As barriers.
Yeah, while not restricting the public right away. So the DPW has been kept informed of this, and ultimately this is New England Forestry Foundation's property and decision what to do there.
What does that mean?
So on the Loudville Road side.
Yeah, I understand you got the 2 pull-offs, but you're not trying to prevent it altogether, you just want to restrict it?
They're trying to block off they're trying to not allow space for vehicles on those pull-offs.
At all?
That's my
So
understanding.
there's no plan to reopen that area?
Not the Loudville Road side at this time.
That's really very upsetting. All because of a few jackasses. Okay.
And I believe, I did go check on the seedlings. There's 90 sycamore seedlings planted in this area. They are super small. So that is a red flag. And that is.
Are they all planted?
It's standing up straight.
It's very challenging next to the leaf litter. No, they're very small. So,
Do you know if
It should leave out,
It
like
should
it
be
should.
about,
yeah,
that one's a little easier?
this was on April 30th, so still some time for them to leave out. Yeah, had recently been planted. I did ask Beth about tubing as a protection for them out of risk of herbivory. She reminded me that sycamores are not a preferred
They should
They're
be
not
pretty
tasty.
robust.
They're not tasty.
Yeah, they're not super tasty. And she said we planted 90 with hopes that there's some survival rate. So she's certainly, New England Forestry Foundation is certainly aiming for survival here and will be monitoring, but
Yep.
decided to overplant rather than protect with plastic. So yeah, they're really hard to see.
But it seems like they're all flagged, so they can keep an eye on them.
Yeah, they're all
Great.
flagged.
Yeah.
Nicely scattered.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be so curious to see what happens. I think we all are.
Yeah.
So. And that's what they look like. That's what the signage looks like now. And this is at the entrance. The city vehicles parked where there will no longer be parking with the Eversource poles. But this signage around trails turn left onto Mineral Street.
Great. So they have signs there directing people to the other entrance.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. And there is an area on the other side of the river that is still closed. And when I was there observing the sycamore seedlings, I did see someone on the other side of the river in the closed area. I tried to tell him it was closed. It was quite loud. The river's quite loud there. So it was hard to communicate that to him. So but I would say it's more confusing if you're a member of the public that there's areas closed on the other side of the river. Because you can access them from the trails off of Mineral Street. Access the area on the other side of the river.
Gotcha.
This trail sign shows it a little clearer. This area is closed, but also this area is closed.
Mhm.
But you have to go past some closed signs in order to get down there.
All right.
All right. That's what I have there. The other RDA that I have an update on is Hilltown. They did, I believe they did demo on Saturday.
Oh, great.
So I updated, they had someone volunteer to do pro bono demo for them. So I adjusted, they had requested an adjustment to their wattle plan. They wanted this section removed, this section with the tube, like this, can you use my mouse? Yeah. And they moved those wattles over here from the A6 to A3 flags.
Great.
So I approved that, and the wattles were properly staked in and looked good. And there were some very sweaty parents who had just spent the afternoon staking it. They had a little bit of extra, so they doubled it up in a couple of places. And I wrote into the DOA that also require 48-hour before construction as well. So
Okay.
I'll have another opportunity to check their erosion controls before construction begins, which I believe will be sometime later this summer.
Sounds good.
And that shows it going all the way up to the parking lot there. Great. Okay,
We have no minutes to approve. Is that correct? It looks like
No.
I see a set over there.
we do. We have two
We do.
sets.
Okay. So which dates are they? This is inaccurate then.
Oh, sorry about that.
7th and 28th.
Okay. Of April.
Yes.
Yes.
Have folks had a chance to review those minutes? Any comments that have not already been incorporated?
Nothing. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from April 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
All right. And how about the 28th?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from April 28th. Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you.
There you go. That's how we get it done.
Quick update on wetlands ordinance. The working group is going to be meeting next Wednesday, I believe, with Ava and also planning.
Yeah, and also Johanna Stacy, the senior planner, has finished a review. So we're gonna have the next stage of meetings with the planning department.
Great. Yep.
Good.
So we'll be incorporating or beginning to incorporate comments from that internal review and then continue to sort of work through the process we had outlined of stepwise getting additional input before we start to actually go through the more public process, which we separate issue, but we got a sense from the city council chair on the e-bike issue of sort of what that process looks like. So similarly, anytime there's a change to an ordinance, it has to ultimately go through the ordinance committee and council. So we're kind of working towards making sure that we've got the necessary input and know that once it gets to that city council stage, it will be in
Torn
good shape
apart.
to, yeah, it will have already been torn apart at all the places it needs to get torn apart, so it should be hopefully in good shape. So, slow process, but that's where we're at.
And I believe the planning department is going to be really helpful in helping us get there, particularly given how many other changes Easthampton is currently balancing around
Yep.
ADUs and around quite a few elements around competing priorities and collaborative priorities within the city.
So earlier when we were talking about the Route 5 trail and the state not necessarily having to meet the local ordinance, were we talking, was that for the stormwater? Because we don't have.
Correct.
Yeah, the other thing of note, I don't know if you all got that, I don't know if I can just mention this really briefly, is that the state won't pay for peer review for that project if the commission were to decide to order peer review.
Oh, interesting.
They mentioned that in their cover letter.
And then the Art in the Garden?
Art in the Garden, yep, that's an event, that is coming on June 7th. I'll just keep reminding you of it. From 2 to 5, a collaborative Easthampton planning event.
All right.
And one other just quick question, it didn't make it on the agenda, it came to me today. Vegetation removal in a resource area, invasive species management in riverfront has to file an NOI. It would be a restoration, it would be the restoration limited project NOI process.
I believe so. I think the riverfront exemption covers plantings of natives, but I don't think it covers removal.
Of invasives. I believe that's true. It's always a little bit, I find it challenging to remember where riverfront and buffer follow the same logic and where riverfront follows the same logic as BBW.
Is there a specific question or? a specific-
I received a call from a landscaper today who's a licensed herbicide applicator who wants to remove a couple thousand square feet of knotweed at the edge of riverfront area.
At that scale with herbicides, no question.
Yeah.
NOI.
Great.
Yep. If somebody were talking about hand pulling like from their yard at the edge of the pond or something, that might be a different conversation. But for that scale of disturbance, we would be remiss not to require an NOI.
Okay, great. And he was also looking for any guidance the commission might have. I sent him to other licensed applicators I know, but around how to move the knotweed after treating, like what to do with the knotweed.
Eat it.
Can't eat it all.
Yeah, that's
That's for him to figure out.
As a professional.
How many bales would you like?
All right. Anything else? Any other general business?
Oh, yes, I shared and Ava shared on the agenda when it went out. There's a pesticide, not pesticide, there's a pollinator certification program that UMass is offering. It's all online and you can complete it at your time. And I thought some of the folks on the bees committee might be interested in it too, so I
Most likely, yes.
share it to them as well. If I you've already got it, so if you want to share it to them.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought they might be interested. I might try to take it myself. It looks really informative.
Actually, our next meeting is until the 22nd, and that's gotta, 22nd is awful close to their end date, so I should probably just forward that around.
Yeah, I didn't know who was on that committee, but yeah, okay, great.
Forward it around and copy you, and that way you'll have it.
Terrific.
Do you all get, do you all get emails from MACC? Are
Yes.
you all on their
Yes.
email list? Okay, great, excellent. So you'll just all let me know if there's ever courses through that you'd like to take.
Any other general business? If not, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is 8:09. We are concluding this evening's meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be June 2nd at 6 p.m.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.